the whole para.
That's right.
So we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The seventh line from above.
Okay.
It is for this reason.
That's right. I have also noted that. But to start from the middle is something odd. So we will, I will go to our call must be to live. I'll read from there. Okay? We have done that much, but we'll redo it. Okay. So, Kiran has started recording, fine. And I am reading now. Our call, everybody has got the text? Yeah.
Yes, Ranga.
Okay, fine. Our call must be to live on a new height in all our being. You have to raise all your consciousness to a new height. And what is that new height? At least the higher mind. There is a self beyond the body-mind life. Okay? That's a new height. We have not, in order to reach that height, to drop back our dynamic parts into the indeterminate stuff of nature and abide by this liberating loss in a blissful quiescence of the spirit. Is this clear? So, who is liberating the soul and going to the higher mind, but the loss is the ownership of mind, life and body has gone. And that is done purposely. The Jnana Yogi and the ascetic, they don't want to have anything to do with the body. But they don't realize that it's a loss. Okay? Their own consciousness, if they did not lose body, mind, life, would be 10 times more powerful. Because you can act in the physical world. But if you give up your body, mind, life and say, I have nothing to do with it, you are only liberating, you are living in a blissful quiescence of the spirit. It's a quiescence. It's not an active dynamic condition. Okay? So, that is what is meant by we should not give up our body, mind, life. We should continue with our body, mind, life and not neglect them. That's what is being said. Okay? We should to drop back our dynamic part. Dynamic parts, body, mind, life. Remember, there is constant movement in the level 1. Mind also is moving all the time, vital is moving all the time, the body also is moving all the time. Even in the universe of matter, life and mind, there is constant movement. That is what is meant by dynamic parts. So dynamic parts always refers to the level 1, body, mind, life, or universally matter, principle of life and principle of mind. So we should not neglect that in integral yoga. It's not that you can't do that. You can do that spiritually. You can neglect the body, mind, life and go up. But then your soul is living there without any power in the world. And the world will remain exactly as it is. But Swami wants the world also to go to the next level of evolution. So, very clear. We should not drop back our dynamic parts into the indeterminate stuff of nature. You understand that? The indeterminate stuff of nature for the body is the matter, universal matter. That is indeterminate. It is not made into, it is large, universal stuff. Similarly, your vital being is made from the indeterminate stuff of vital nature, universal vital force. That's what is meant by indeterminate stuff of nature. And abide by this liberating loss. See, interesting, the word, the way he uses words. Liberating loss. Your soul is liberated, but you have lost your body, mind, life. Of course, they don't care. The ascetic doesn't care. He says, good riddance. But Swami says, no, don't do that. Raise this also. Your realization of the divine will be much, much more ample, much wider, and much more powerful if you don't do that. Okay? That can always be done, and it brings a great repose and freedom. What can be done always? Neglecting body, mind, life, rejecting it, and living in the self. Okay? That can always be done, and it brings a great repose and freedom. That's the liberation that you get. Great repose, calm, freedom. But what nature herself attends from us is that the word attends means expects. Okay? But what nature herself expects from us is that the whole of what we are should rise into the spiritual consciousness. In fact, your mental consciousness also should go up there. Your vital consciousness also should go up there. Even your body consciousness should be amenable. It should be capable of receiving the higher light. So, and become a manifest and manifold power of the spirit. That's exactly what the Gita recommends. Live in the world with like the lotus leaf in water. An integral transformation is the integral aim of the being in nature. This only Sranga is saying. The others are saying, we don't want integral, that's too difficult. All we want is the soul should be free, that's all. Okay? An integral transformation is the integral aim of the being in nature. This is the inherent sense of a universal urge of self-transcendence. So we can see that, Sranga is saying, 3 levels below, we see that there is no rejection. There is a assimilation of the lower. Okay? That's it. Nature herself is doing that. So why at this mental level should we suddenly change the movement of nature? That's what he is asking. This is the inherent sense of a universal urge of self-transcendence. It is for this reason that the process of nature is not confined to a heightening of herself into a new principle. The new height is not a narrow, intense pinnacle. It brings with it a widening and establishes a larger field of life in which the power of the new principle may have sufficient play and room for its emergence. There you are. He is explaining very clearly. He is saying that we notice that when life is coming out of matter, it is not rejecting matter. Even when mind is coming out, it is not rejecting life and mind. So why should we do that now? That's the principle of nature. So we should continue the principle of nature. He says that in the synthesis also. Look at nature and learn from her. She is not rejecting matter and life and mind. She is not rejecting. So you also should not reject. Then you will be in harmony with nature. And if you do that, then you will have sufficient power in the body-mind life. A larger field of life in which the power of the new principle may have sufficient play and room for its emergence. This action of elevation and expansion is not confined to an utmost possible largeness in the essential play of the new principle itself. It includes a taking up of that which is lower into the higher values. He is referring here in one sentence to the chapter Ascension and Assimilation, which we have done. Okay? That is a method of nature. Ascension, but assimilate the lower. Don't reject it. Okay? An idea is coming into my mind to explain this. Suppose there is a group of 25 people wanting to climb a mountain. Okay? So, the most able one first goes up. Okay? And then he pulls up all the others by a rope. Okay? So, he is not neglecting the lowers, he is asking everyone to come up. Then after everybody has come to his level, he again goes up himself, or 1 or 2 people, and then pull up all the rest again. So, this is the process of nature. He does not himself alone go to the top and say, I have done what I had to do and I am very happy, I don't care for the others. Okay. There is something like that. Okay. So he is constantly helping others to come up to his level and then going up first himself. That's what Mother and Sister have done. They are going up first themselves and then helping others. This helping others is what is meant by the foundation of will and Swampasham. You are creating an institution where it is possible for everyone to rise to another level of consciousness. Okay. This is what he is saying here. This action of elevation and expansion is not confined to an utmost possible largeness in the essential play of the new principle itself. It includes a taking up of that which is lower into the higher values. The divine and spiritual life will not only assume into itself the mental, vital, physical life transformed and spiritualized, but it will give them a much wider and fuller play than was open to them so long as they were living on their own level. So in other words, when the spiritual ascension is made and you don't neglect the lower, the mind's capacity of knowledge will increase tenfold. The vital's capacity of enjoyment will increase tenfold. The body's capacity of being resistant to disease and death will become tenfold. That is what Sadhguru is meaning here. Okay? Very carefully, if you live, that's what he said. We'll give them a much wider and fuller play than was open to them so long as they were living on the own level. Okay? Now they are not living on the own level. They have opened themselves up and the higher light is entering into them, making them more capable. Who is them? Mind as well as life as well as body. Our mental, physical, vital existence need not be destroyed by our self-exceeding. That's what the ascetics are doing. The Jnana Yogis, they are doing that. Destroyed by our self-exceeding. Nor are they lessened and impaired by being spiritualized. Rather on the contrary, they are not being harmed at all by being spiritualized. They can be also much healthier at their own level if you are spiritualized. They can and do become much richer, greater, more powerful and more perfect. In their divine change, they break into possibilities which in their unspiritualized condition would not be practicable or imaginable. If you do this ascension and assimilation, the powers of the body will increase immensely, the powers of the vital. What is the main desire of vital? Enjoyment. Enjoyment and possession. That will become 10 times more powerful without the ego. Okay? Then the mind. The possibility of mind getting knowledge will be 10 times more if you don't neglect them when you are spiritualized. Now we go to the next paragraph. This evolution, this process of heightening. So who will read today? Kiran, can you read?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Kiran. This evolution.
Yes. This evolution, this process of heightening and widening and integralization is in its nature a growth and an ascent out of the sevenfold ignorance into the integral knowledge. The crux of that knowledge, of that ignorance, is the constitutional. It resolves itself into a manifold ignorance of the true character of our becoming, and unawareness of our total self, of which the key is a limitation by the plane which inhabit and by the present predominant principle of our nature. The plane we inhabit is the plane of matter. The present predominant principle in our nature is the mental intelligence with a sense mind, which depends upon matter as its supports and pedestal. As a consequence, the preoccupation of the mental intelligence and its powers with the material existence, as it is shown to it through the senses, and with life as it has been formulated in a compromise between life and matter, is a special stamp of the constitutional ignorance. This natural materialism or materialized vitalism, this clamping of ourselves to our beginnings, is a form of self-restriction, narrowing the scope of our existence, which is very insistent on the human being. It is a first necessity of his physical existence, but is afterwards fogged by a primal ignorance into a chain that hampers his every step upwards. The attempt to grow out of his limitation of the wholeness, power and truth of the spirit by the materialized mental intelligence, and out of this subjection of the soul to material nature in the first step towards a real progress of our humanity. For our ignorance is not entire. It is a limitation of consciousness. It is not the complete nascence, which is the stamp of the same ignorance in purely material existences, those which have not only matter for their plane, but matter for their dominant principle. It is a partial, a limiting, a dividing, and a very largely falsifying knowledge. Out of that limitation and falsification, we have to grow into the truth of our spiritual being.
Yeah. Okay. So, they say, now, what is the title of the chapter? Towards the sevenfold knowledge. And he will tell you what the sevenfold ignorance is, and then climbing out of that one. Okay? The sevenfold ignorance, okay, you will see, is given one by one. This constitutional ignorance that he is talking about is one of the ignorances. So, what are the ignorance? What is ignorance? What are we ignorant about? Okay. We are ignorant, just a foresight, right? Seeing before what is going to come. Okay. In the chapter, he says that we are completely ignorant of where we have come from. What is our source? Okay. Materially, our source is our parents. Okay. But what about the vital and the mind, and what about your soul? From where did it come? Okay. So that's what he is discussing in this. So you are absolutely ignorant that you have come from the absolute, which is the highest. He uses terms. We can use the term. We have come from God, but God is a very general term, and this is philosophy. So you have to say exactly what. So the absolute, he uses the term absolute. So you are ignorant of your absolute. Then you are ignorant also of your soul. You are ignorant of your past lives. You are ignorant of the intraconscient, the superconscient. So all these things one by one. We are also ignorant of what we should do in life, practical ignorance. So all these ignorances one by one, he will tell us. And then the next one is how to go into the knowledge, sevenfold knowledge. This is what he is going to describe to us. The constitutional ignorance is one of them. We are constituted, how are we constituted? Okay. That's what he said. I now read the paragraph that we read just now. This evolution, this process of heightening and widening and integralization. See, he uses 3 words. This is his style of prose. Everywhere you will see that he uses 3 words and he shows you the relation. Okay? Now the different, the language is global. He doesn't limit himself to one. Every sentence of his is global. So here, this evolution, this process of heightening, we go to a higher height, but we also widen ourselves. We don't only live on pinnacle, but all around the mountain, whatever is there, that also we come to know. And what is that? That's the intraconscient and the circumconscient. All that is around you. It does not reject the world. Okay? The world also you come to know. Heightening and widening, but integralization. In other words, the heights and the lower valleys and the all around are not to be viewed separately. They are to be integralized. You must know their relations and their dependence on each other. Is in its nature a growth and an ascent out of the sevenfold ignorance into the integral knowledge. Sevenfold ignorance is just spoken first time about it. The crux of that ignorance is the constitution. What are we constituted about? With? Okay. We have a body, we have a vital and a mind. That much we know. But actually there are many, many other things that we are constituted. We are actually divine in essence. Then we are also the intraconscient is all our past lives are actually contributing. So all those things also we are ignorant about. First is the constitution. It resolves itself into a manifold ignorance of the true character of our beings. By the way, the word constitution is clear. What are you constituted with? Okay? So, the Constitution of India is a totally different thing. It's a different meaning. Okay? But the constitutional here is, what are the elements of which we are constituted? Very obviously matter, life and mind. But there are other things also. So that's telling you that the ignorance, human ignorance is constituted. We don't know what we are constituted about. It resolves itself into a manifold ignorance of the true character of our being. First, okay. So here he is giving you a hint of all that we are ignorant about. Of the true character of our being. We are actually divine, but we don't know that. An unawareness of our total self. The total self is the individual, the cosmic and the transcendent. But we don't know that. Of which the key is the limitation by the plane we inhabit and by the present predominant principle of our nature. The present principle of our nature is matter. The plane we inhabit is the plane of matter. That's what we live in. The present predominant principle of our nature is the mental intelligence with the sense mind. Sense mind is the manas, remember, the physical mind, which depends upon matter as its support and pedestal. As a consequence, he has used an interesting word, pedestal, support and pedestal. So matter, if a statue is there, the pedestal is the lowest. It is supporting the superstructure of the statue. Okay? So that's a pedestal. Matter is the pedestal on which you are building your whole being. As a consequence, the preoccupation of the mental intelligence and its powers with the material existence as it is, shown to it through the senses, and life as it has been formulated in a compromise between life and matter is a special type, stamp of the constitutional ignorance. So, the constitutional ignorance is very much limited by our being predominantly influenced by the matter. Okay, so that's what is being said. So, this natural materialism or materialized vitalism. Natural materialism is the body and the materialized vitalism is the vital, but remember that we don't see the vital, we see only the materialized vital. We have a vital in the body, but do we see the vital anywhere else? No, we don't. We see it always with the material vital. The animal is the materialized vitalism. This clamping of ourselves to our beginnings is a form of self-restriction, narrowing the scope of our existence, which is very insistent on the human being. Okay? So, we restrict ourselves by limiting ourselves to the lowest, the matter. That's what it is. It is a first necessity of its physical existence. Obviously, you have to look after your body, you have to feed it, you have to give all the needs of the body. Sleep, food, and the necessity of reproduction. Okay? The first necessity of physical existence is afterwards forced by primal ignorance into a chain that hampers every step upwards. The dependence on the body is not allowing it to go up very easily. It's like a gravitation in the physical world. They attempt to grow out of this limitation of the wholeness, power and truth of the spirit. Here again, he has used three words. Wholeness, power and truth of the spirit by the materialized mental intelligence, and out of the subjection of the soul to material nature is the first step towards the real progress of our humanity. So we have to go beyond the materialized mental intelligence. And what is that? Very clearly the physical mind. The physical mind or the what is called the manas. In other words, we have to go beyond our senses. The manas is interpreting the senses. Okay? The physical mind is interpreting senses. You have to go beyond that. In other words, you must not be influenced by what our senses are telling us. Okay? You have to go beyond that. Tirunatita is the word used in the Gita. power and to the spirit by the materialized mental intelligence, and out of the subjection of the soul to material nature is the first step towards a real progress of all humanity. In other words, the soul must get out of material nature. And which is the material nature? Body, mind, life. So you have to get out of that. It is the first step towards a real progress of all humanity. For our ignorance is not entire. It's a limitation of consciousness. The ignorance of the animal is even lower, and the ignorance in matter is lowest. But at our level, human level, it is not entire. It's part. We have a lot of consciousness, mental consciousness, vital consciousness, so it's halfway, or maybe quarter way. Okay? Then he's saying, it is not the complete nations which is a stamp of the same ignorance in purely material existences. Which are the purely material existences? Stones, okay, matter, the elements, okay, the scientific elements. There, this is complete nations. Hydrogen, oxygen, gold, silver, all these things are the stamp of the ignorance. So, complete, purely material existence. Purely material existence, all the elements that we have. Okay. As I said, those who do science, now, when we were at school, we knew only 92 elements. But now there are more than 100, and I think 180 elements. They have discovered so many new things. Plutonium, uranium, okay, platinum, all sorts of new things have come up. We have discovered that they are all there in matter. And it will be endless. There will be many more to come. Okay. So, that's what he's saying. Our ignorance is not like that of matter, nor is it like that of animal. Okay. It's a complete nation which is stamped on the same ignorance in purely material existence. Those which have not only matter for their plane, but matter for their dominant principle. It's a partial limiting and dividing and very largely a falsifying knowledge. So, when you are using your senses, it is a falsifying knowledge. What is falsifying? You are not seeing the reality. You are not seeing the connectedness. You are only seeing the superficial aspect. Are you seeing the soul? Are you seeing their thoughts? Are you seeing their vital emotions? No, you are not. So you are falsifying the truth when you are using only your senses. Out of that limitation and falsification, we have to grow into the truth of our spiritual life. So this is the first necessity. It constitutes an ignorance. Now we can go to the next one. We still have about 11 minutes. This preoccupation with life and matter. Who will read next? Shilpa, you have not read a long time, and if you have the text, you can read.
Yes, I can read.
Okay, go ahead. This preoccupation.
His preoccupation with life and matter is at the beginning right and necessary because the first step that man has to take is to know and possess his physical existence as well as he can by applying his thought and intelligence to such an experience of it as his sense mind can give to him. But is but this is only a preliminary step, and if we stop there, we have made no real progress. We are where we were and have gained only more physical elbow room to move about in and more power for our mind to establish a relative knowledge and an insufficient and precarious mastery and for our life desire to push things about and jostle and hustle around amid the throng of physical forces and existence. The utmost widening of a physical objective knowledge, even if it embraced the most distant solar systems and the deepest layers of the earth and sea and the most subtle powers of material substance and energy, is not the essential gain for us, not the one thing which it is most needful for us to acquire. That is why the gospel of materialism, in spite of the dazzling triumph of physical science proves itself always in the end a vain and helpless creed. And that too is why physical science itself, with all its achievements, though it may accomplish comfort, can never achieve happiness and fullness of being for the human race. Our true happiness lies in the true growth of our whole being, in a victory throughout the total range of our existence, in mastery of the inner as well as and more than the outer, the hidden as well as the overt nature. For true completeness comes not by describing wider circles on the plane where we begin, but by transcendence. It is for this reason that after the first necessary foundation in life and matter, we have to heighten our force of consciousness, deepen, widen, substilize it. We must first liberate our mental selves and enter into a freer, finer, and nobler play of our mental existence, for the mental is much more than the physical, our true existence, because we are even in our instrumental or expressive nature predominantly mind and not matter, mental much rather than physical beings. That growth into the full mental being is the first transitional moment towards human perfection and freedom. It does not actually perfect, it does not liberate the soul, but it lifts us one step out of the material and vital absorption and prepares the loosening of the hold of the ignorance.
This is the first step. So he has told us that matter is the one, the body is the one that actually gravitationally pulls you down even psychologically. Okay? So what to do? Become more mental. And that is the first step. This is what he said. Okay? So I'll do one thing. We have got only 7 minutes left, so I'll read the summary. It's quite a big para. So what's he saying in the, basically what he's saying, let us see. That man at first preoccupies himself with the material existence of the material world is just and proper. That man is occupying himself more with the physical is just and proper. Okay. He has to pay attention to it. It's quite understandable, we say. He must, of course, familiarize himself with the physical world he lives in and depend upon it. He must even become master of his environment, if he can. But he cannot permanently stay put at the material level. Man may have partially controlled the world around him, but he must push on to make real evolutionary progress. He must exceed his physical and vital needs and set his mental intelligence free. In contrast to the animal, man is more mental than vital and physical. Essentially, science occupies itself with only the material world, but there is much more in existence than mere matter. Science may have made living easier, given more comfort and leisure to man, but he has not given mastery. Man must achieve true happiness, not merely comfort. Thus, to escape the ignorant clutch of body and life, he must become the mental man. Intelligence must not liberate, intelligence may not liberate his soul, but it does take a step nearer to that goal. This is what he's saying. So, now we'll look at we have only got 5 minutes, but we'll look at the sentences and again we'll get stuck. And we'll do that. Again we'll read next Thursday, we'll again start from the beginning. But just to have a look at, because we have got 5 minutes more. This preoccupation with life and matter is at the beginning right and necessary. He is not talking of the mental man, he is talking of the very, very undeveloped man. The man who is just come up from the animal level. He has to concern himself with his body and his body. He has to do it. Because if he does not, then he will perish. So, this preoccupation with life and matter is at the beginning right and necessary. Because the first step that man has to take is to know and possess his physical existence as well as he can by applying his thought and intelligence to such experience of it as his sense mind can give to him. Whatever his sense mind is telling him, he has to pay attention to that. But this is only a preliminary step, and if we stop there, we have made no real progress. We are where we were and have gained only more physical elbow room to move about in and more power for our mind to establish a relative knowledge and an insufficient and precarious mastery of our life desire to push things about and jostle and hustle around amid the throng of physical forces and existence. Now you use a very interesting word, precarious mastery. Okay? So we have to understand what it means by that. Precarious mastery. When I don't have a phone, I have to, if I want to talk to somebody, I'll have to go and talk to them. But if I have a phone, I don't have to go anywhere. I just pick up the phone and talk to him. My power has increased. My capacity has increased. But this mastery over time and, see, if I have got a relative in America, I would have to go there to see him. Now I don't. I can just switch on my video, okay, and talk to him straight. So, my mastery has increased, but it is precarious. What happens if the power fails? Okay? What happens if the phone collapses? It's very precarious. They are depending on something. That's why it is precarious. Okay? We think it is a great mastery. Of course it is. But it is not the real mastery. But if in my consciousness I can see people in America or see people wherever they are and talk to them through my consciousness, that is not precarious mastery. That is true mastery. Okay? That's what I mean by precarious mastery. We are depending on outward things. And for our life desire to push things about and jostle and hustle around amid a throng of physical forces and existence. So, if I have to be master of myself, I have to constantly meet the will of others and also the will of other things also. If I am in a forest, I am subject to the dangers of the forest. Okay? So, that is what it means. Even in a society, I can't do whatever I want. I would like to do whatever I want. My life desire, I would like to do. But it will get jostled and hustled by other people's wills also. Other people's desires. That's what it means. Okay? The utmost widening of the physical objective knowledge, that is what science is all about. Even if it embraces the most distant solar systems and the deepest layers of the earth and sea and the most subtle powers of material substance and energy, is not the essential gain for us, not the one thing which is most useful for us to acquire. Can mastery be complete if I know what is there at the bottom of the sea? If I know what is there 10,000 light years away, will it give me mastery? No. That's what Sven is pointing out. It's a consciousness mastery that was improved, not the physical knowledge. He uses the word physical objective knowledge. Objective, note, outside yourself. But what we need is psychological, subjective knowledge. That's what we need. So physical objective knowledge is not going to give us anywhere. Okay? Yes, it does increase, as this is comfort, but not real happiness. He is making a difference between comfort and happiness. Very interesting. He is using different words. Okay? So anyway, we will stop here today, and next time we will start again from the beginning and go on. Okay? So we stop here today. It's 8:40 already, so we stop. I will